Hello, everyone. Most of the time, when you're running a short-term rental, things go very smoothly. But there are times when things get broken by guests or there's other issues with the homes and the rentals. And that's what we're going to talk about today is when there's an issue, how to deal with resolutions with Airbnb and VRBO and also if you've got direct bookings. So let's talk about resolutions and what happens before the resolution and then how to deal with that. Who would like to jump in first?
Who's got a big one?
I can jump in first.
Okay.
I feel like I don't have too much to say about this, but because I'm dealing with one now, and I'd like to hear more about how you guys would handle this. So, when I deal with resolutions, I typically like to start with, so just to make the guest kind of aware of anything that's gonna might come up with anything that's wrong with the unit. So like an AC issue or like a cleaning issue or someone or one of my team members didn't show up for cleaning, then I would just let them know, hey, we're a little bit behind. We might need to come back at a later time today. Would that be okay? We can have you check in X, Y, and Z, right? Just to set the expectations right up front. Um, and then to remind them of some of the house rules. So if, they break the house rules, then, this is what's going to happen. So recently I had a guest that came in and broke a bunch of the house rules, left a mess, broke a bunch of stuff in the kitchen, and now we're going through resolutions. My team had set up Google Drive where we just put in all of the pictures into that Google Drive. But the thing that we did not have that we might lose the resolution on is the previous pictures, the pictures of what it looked like the date before they checked in. So one of the things that I would like to do moving forward is to grab those pictures and make sure that those are held somewhere. There's different tools that we can use nowadays that integrate with our different PMSs. One is called, not Home Away, I'm sorry. I think you guys might know this one, but there's tools where the cleaners will go in and whoever's doing the inspections to take the pictures beforehand. It gets loaded up into the system. And then same thing when there's a checkout, they're going to do this a similar thing, so you can grab those. I wish I had done that specific process so that I could put those into the resolutions claim into Airbnb and avail that air cover. But curious to see and hear what you guys have to say.
So I'd like to answer your question or at least provide some good feedback. There is a product called Insta360, and it's a video camera that shoots in 360 degrees. We have just purchased one. You can get them from about $300 to $500. And the idea would be, going forward, is that when the inspector goes to the house, when they finish their inspection, just before the guests arrive, they will literally hold a stick up with this camera and they will slowly walk through each room of the house. So all of this will get will get videotaped. And then when the cleaner comes the day that people leave, if there's any issue, the cleaner will take a photo of whatever it is that's been broken, and we'll have the before picture that we can take from the video capture that was done by the inspector, and we'll have the after picture that was done by the cleaner. So I can't tell you how this is going to work in practice, but from theoretically, we should be covered. The only challenge is that we will probably, if it works, we'll probably need to get one of these cameras for each one of our inspectors so that the inspector will take the camera around and it won't to be sitting at each one of the houses.
The other thing is there's software like Turno, basically, and I think Breezeway as well, but where the cleaners, they just take pictures after they've cleaned an area and it's time stamped so that you have it, after the clean, and that could serve as your before the new guest picture. And so that's integrated also like into our PMS, that like they give us a free subscription to Turno with Hospitable or whatever. So I'm not 100% familiar with Turno, but that is another way you could do it. But I have a resolution story with Airbnb. Just the general guidelines are definitely you have to document everything and just expect to be on the case for months with them. In Washington State, they have a third-party Generali insurance company that the claims go through. But I agree with Ray. The idea is to avoid them. You start by avoiding it, but I've learned that actually I'm not going to do that anymore. I have a little case study, and I'll try not to get too in-depth with it. But if you want to know more, you can send me an email. But we'll have let's just say we'll call the person Arvind. We had a new listing, and we had a heat wave, a really bad heat wave here, kind of unprecedented. And we had a portable AC, and it wasn't the greatest thing. And they started complaining about it, and they had a fairly, they were booked for like a couple of weeks, and they complained, and we realized, that wasn't doing the trick. So they complained, and he started saying how his kid got COVID and all this stuff. And so we said, hey, okay, we'll give you some money back because we wanted to make it good. And at some point, he just kept complaining. And so we said, hey, this place is not going to be for you. Let's just find you another place. We'll give you a couple days credit, and then, of course, for any days you don't stay, we'll give you a credit. And we even referred him to Airbnb to find him another place. Anyways, the very short version is he wouldn't do it. We were trying to argue about the amount of days that he wouldn't want to stay. And so finally, he kept saying, okay, we all got sick. It's your fault and all this stuff. And he insisted to get 4 days. And at some point, it was just like, oh man, that's ridiculous, But at some point he said, okay, if you just say 4 days, we're good. We'll walk away, we're good. And he wouldn't leave. So he ended up staying the entire time. So we gave him this refund, way more than we wanted. And then that was it. And he stayed the entire time. And then about, I don't know, 3-4 weeks later, I got this notice from my bookkeeper. Thank God I have a live bookkeeper. And he goes, yeah, so why did Airbnb charge you twice on this refund? And I'm like, what? So it turns out that Airbnb, not only did we refund him this money, Airbnb charged him the same exact amount from us for that. So I inquired to them, and then they said, well, blah, 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 the guest is entitled to get 30% refund for the impacted nights due to the issue they experienced. And then they said that the refund we sent him was for the unspent nights. And so then I was explaining, well, no, money we spent was for the impacted nights, and then there were no unspent nights. And then anyways, I had to go to ask for a supervisor, and they said, well, the supervisor's only going to say what we said. So it took me about 3 or 4 goes just to get to the supervisor. And then anyways, the short version is they kept going back and forth and saying that, and they kept saying it was for that money that I sent was from the unspent nights. And then I sent him the thing where the guy said, it's all good, and he was happy. And then I was saying, the least you could do is just do the minimum first of all, you're encouraging me not to make the guest happy because I tried to make the guest happy, and now you're penalizing me. And then also, you could at least explain to me the proof of the unspent nights since they spent the entire booking there. And basically, the bottom line is, hi, Michael, this is Frank, supervisor here. Please be advised that per our terms of service, Airbnb reserves the right to make the final determination with regard to these disputes. We are unable to reconsider the decision made in this case. We've issued our final decision and will uphold it accordingly. As further communication will not change the outcome of this case, we must respectfully disengage from further discussion. And that was the end of it.
Wow.
So, do I go to small claims court? Do I go to arbitration? This is after endless hours. So at some point I'm going, or do I spend my time growing the business? Basically, my takeaway is next time guest is unhappy, Airbnb spend their resources going through the stuff with the guest and let them pay their people, because my time has no value to Airbnb. And I'm just going to push it off and say, take it up with Airbnb, because They claim they want me to be a good host, but this is what they do: is they punish me for it. And anybody who wants me to go blow by, I mean, I'm sorry I even put anybody through hearing this story so far.
Dina,
But
you type of
send me an
thing.
email
Yeah.
at mg, as in Michael Gross, at hostjeeves.com, hostjeeves.com. I'll send you screenshots, whatever. And it's painful for me, and I apologize for putting anybody through it. So there you go.
Dina, you had an issue where you threatened small claims court and you won. So can you walk our audience through what happened with you?
Yeah, thankfully, I've only had 2 significant claims in the 11 years that I've been operating. One was way back in like 2017, where we had a fire. The guest agreed to pay for it, the damages. And when it came time to go through Airbnb resolutions, the guest went dark. And thankfully, Airbnb cut me the check right away. I provided receipts. I've never, thankfully, had to provide like photos of the before, thankfully, because we don't do those inspection tours. Unless it's just at randomly we'll do it, but we don't. So that one was cut and super easy. And moving on from there, I've always been able to collect small resolutions from Airbnb, but this one was special. My hackles went up when this guest instant booked. They had 1 5-star review from another guest, and you could tell it was an automated review from the previous host. But my hackles went up. I was like, I am not vibing with this guest. So I messaged Airbnb support and I said, hey, listen, and I used the terminology, I'm not comfortable hosting this guest. I didn't say exactly why, because in the past you could have instant bookings reneged. So that wasn't the case. The individual that was helping me said, you'll have to pay the cancellation fee if you don't host this guest. And I said, that's unacceptable. Why should I be financially punished for hosting this guest? I should have taken that fee. It was like $150 because 4 months of dealing with the aftermath of this guest. It was a great reservation, a solid week, full price. But I was like, I just have a feeling. So sure enough, walk into the unit. No, I think I was checking the door activity. That's what I do. And I can tell abnormal behavior. Why is the door opening so often or so late, weird hours? So I knew there was some action that was not of a normal guest behavior. We walk in and it was a mess, nothing that cleaners can't clean up, but you could smell that it had been smoked in. You could tell that they were doing drugs. They had left a few things behind. And then obviously they had a situation where they put the doorknob through the wall. And there was also another hole beside a light fixture. So that part got my goat because I'm like, I'm a big back-to-back booking girl. And we had someone coming in, was it that day or the next day? Anyway, so they had tried to patch the wall. They tried to fix it in the 7 days that they were there. But it was such a mishmash. It was awful. It looked like cake icing on the wall. So I have learned that you need to have every price for every infraction listed in your house rules. So the cost of replacing a towel, a face cloth, a hand towel, if you smoke, what the fines are, et cetera, et cetera. So in my rules, I have $1,000 fine for smoking in the property, but I have listed it as not a fine, but ozone treatment. Because if you don't have an ozone generator like I do, you have to go rent those. Then it takes time. Then you've got to put them in the unit for 24 hours, air it out, et cetera, et cetera. So I put that in as $1,000 for ozone remediation. I have fines to cover the strata fees in the rules listed. So the strata fines for the buildings, which is your HOA, they would fine me $200 if they found out that there was smoking in that unit. So I pass that on to the guest as $200. And then for breaking every rule, you pay $200. The holes in the wall cost me $300 to fix. I submitted that report. There was a stain on the wool carpet that I didn't even want to bother removing, so I just charged them for a new replacement carpet. Submitted the receipt for what that would cost. I have not ordered the carpet yet. $1,000 for ozone remediation. Everything came to about $2,700 for damages, extra cleaning, etc. I always use Airbnb resolution first, submitted the claim to the guest. Of course, they don't say anything, so you involve Airbnb. And then that's where I feel like their strategy is to delay because we all give up. Like Michael said, is my time worth it? Well, for this one, abso-frickin-lutely it was. Because I have an assistant. My assistant, it is her job to continue to follow up with Airbnb support. So they would keep closing the thread or message you at 4 o'clock in the morning, which I think is another tactic because I've heard it many times. Message you at 4 o'clock in the morning. If you don't respond to me by this time, the file is closed. And then you wake up in the morning and the file is closed. So I said, do not stop. Keep messaging Airbnb resolutions. And then it moved to email and you wouldn't hear back. Then they kept asking for the receipts over and over and over again. Same question, same story. And so finally I was like, what has it been? 4 months? Let's write a demand letter, which is a super simple letter that anybody can write. And it basically outlines who it's addressed to, who you are, what you're asking for, and the deadline for them to respond. It's very typical. So I give 7 days to respond. I spell out exactly the guest name, guest reservation, and I highlighted the fact that I had a conversation with Airbnb about this guest requesting that they cancel because I had fear that something wrong would happen. So I think that helped me as well because I took screenshots of that conversation and just attached them to the demand letter. Sent that off on, oh goodness, I don't know. But I said, I think I sent it on a Friday via email to support@airbnb.com. Said, you have 7 business days to reply to me, or I will take this to my lawyer. I will take it legal. I didn't say small claims court. I was just like, I'll pursue my legal options. And then I got a response on Monday saying that they would have a response to me on Tuesday. And sure enough, they accepted everything except the 2 fines for smoking and drug use. So I don't know if I've got to find a new way to spell out the fines because I've had this problem in the past. They don't cover fines. I had an off-leash dog in a property. I got a fine. I tried to pass that on. It wasn't compensated. So I need to find another way because that's not the first time a fine hasn't been covered. But for the most part, I think they're sending $2,300. So I have that money. So this was 20 days ago. They responded that they said, yes, we will cover it. So sorry about all this. Funny, the demand letter is the only thing that got me a response right away and a resolution. I don't have the money yet. We are following up as to why. They said that they would send it via the normal payout or a check. So I'm not sure why that money hasn't happened, but they did say that they would send it. So I mean, if I really wanted to go legal, I'm sure I could. But the demand letter added some heat. And I've used the demand letter before in collecting an invoice payment from an owner holding my last final payment hostage.
I love that.
I just wonder.
I mean, it's such a clever.
How much it costs?
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead, Michael.
I just wonder how much it costs them, their legal staff, and their salary and their overhead to save for that money, right?
Yeah.
Like it's ridiculous.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
it's just they want to discourage other hosts.
Yeah.
It's all about that.
It's delay, and that's typical in politics too. Delay, deny, right? Like delay as much as possible because the common person will give up. They'll be like, you know what, it's not worth my time. I'm so fed up, whatever. And I'm like, that's where you have to use your assistant so that you don't burn out.
Yeah.
Because it's their responsibility to do it. While I'm handling the big things, she can just continue sending emails. But moving forward, I think you should create some sort of a process. So Airbnb has their process. You message the guest for the resolution through the resolutions department, always. Have everything you need. 3 days later, the next trigger is involve Airbnb. And then your next trigger should be really 3 days later, you should be hearing from Airbnb. And if not, that's when you start pumping things up. And then maybe 30 days is when you start sending the demand letter. Like you don't want to fire that off right away. And there's tons of examples of demand letters out there. I found mine at small claims court for my province because you do want to make sure that whatever you're putting in your demand letter follows your state or provincial laws, and it's super simple to put together.
That's a great idea. I love it. I wanted to add a couple of things. Number one, if you are a new host and you're just setting up a property, really make sure that you have copies of all your receipts for everything that you buy. Take a photo, put it into a file so that it's handy if that thing breaks or if you need proof, then you've got the actual cost of it and you've got where you purchased it, etc. So that's number one. Number two, if the guest has not left a review, don't put in a resolution center. You've got 14 days to put in your resolution. Wait until day number 13, hour number 12, whatever it is. But wait till just before the 14-day limit of when the guests can leave a review, and put in the resolutions issue then, because then it's less likely that the guest will have any time to retaliate in a review. And I wanted to add one additional thing, and that is sometimes you'll get a representative at Airbnb where they'll say no to something, and you'll have to try to find a different representative. So if you get a no initially, call back and get a different supervisor to talk to. We had an issue where they had denied a claim, and the owner was so pissed off, he contacted somebody that he knew that used to work for Airbnb that in their legal department. And this person then contacted Airbnb, and lo and behold, the resolution got paid out. So these things, it's not cut and dry. It really depends on who you get and the situation of the day.
Keep trying. Try another representative, because they seem to get off shift every 3 hours.
So we hope that you don't have to go through resolutions, but in all reality, you're going to, at some point, have an issue where you need to have a resolution resolved. And so these are things that we hope will help in going through those resolutions. Any last thoughts that any of you have?
No, I would just exactly prepare for not if it's going to happen, but when it's going to happen. And just by participating in calls like this, learning through observation, hopefully you can prevent big headache. Like Ray's asking for, like, what are the items that you put in your rules? Anything that you think of that you need replacing, right? And that's why I did a big blanket statement for the $1,000 ozone remediation. I own the machine. I don't have to rent it anymore. That's $1,000 profit off me. The only thing is time to pop the machine in. So you can really dictate within reason. I think $1,000 is not reasonable. I was surprised that they paid that out in full. I thought there'd be a little bit of negotiation with that, but yeah, I would say.
But that makes up for other things they don't pay.
Exactly, and that's why.
To be fair, it's not. Yeah.
Exactly
to be fair, it's not fair that they broke the rules. So that's another thing if it's already pointed out there. So
yeah, and I always go high on.
And that is Canadian dollars, so it's a little bit lower in US dollar.
Yeah, but I also go high on everything too, because they don't compensate you for your time. They typically don't compensate you for extra cleaning, especially if you're doing the cleaning. So you do want to make up for it on the pieces you're replacing. So if a duvet covers cost me $150, I'm charging $300.
That is one thing that I do, is I do ask my cleaners to give me a separate invoice for the extra cleaning on letterhead. And that has worked in the past.
Yes. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. But if you're doing it yourself.
To very much articulate over and above the normal cleaning, just spell it out as a separate invoice. Yeah, that has worked.
Interesting. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, good luck out there.
Well, thank you again for joining us. We have a different topic each week. We meet on Tuesday mornings Pacific time. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with people that you feel this will benefit. And we look forward to seeing you on the next episode of The Real Hosts of Short-Term Rentals. Thanks again. Bye-bye for now.